single day. I'm gonna make something great.
And then I was reading from before. So we're gonna mute all you guys, but if you have any questions or comments, just put your hand up, okay? So this story is called, well, let me just put this a little bit. When Dreams Come True, okay? There's a town called Corky, not far from here, where dreams come true every 100 years. That sounds terrific, I hear you cry, but it isn't so great, and I'll tell you why. There was a girl named Meg, with feet so large that people cried, they're as big as a barg. She wished for little feet small and round. When she got them, she kept falling down. A man named Sam wanted a sea of beer, and that's what he got, right up to his ears. You'd think a sea of beer would satisfy him, but the trouble was, he couldn't swim. A sea of beer, oh that's Sam, hey? There was a girl named Lucy who climbed into trees because she wanted to talk to the birds and the bees, but the sparrows and starlings all wanted to chat, and Lucy just couldn't compete with all that. There was a boy named Arnie who wished he was strong. His dream came true, but it didn't last long. Everything he touched just snapped into two, and in no time at all, he had run out of glue. So you see what I'm getting at in this little rhyme? You can figure it out if you give it some time. Beware what you wish for, and I'm talking to you. You never know, it might come true. That was a nice little poem, hey? Look, I like this photo. This is Sam drowning in his sea of beer. See? Those are some pictures that they drawing. I like their. Okay. The next one is called Follow the Leader. Sasha the sheep lived, as most sheep do, in a large field, a whole bunch of other sheep. Carefully watched over by the farmer and his trusty sheepdogs. The farmer seemed to be a reasonable fellow who made sure they had everything they needed, but the sheepdogs were surely a miserable bunch, always barking out their orders and expecting to be obeyed. This suited the other sheep pretty well, because they were not good at thinking for themselves. But Sasha, well, Sasha was different. You guys see that? We got the sheepdog, the field with all the sheep. He's got a big field. And then, here we have it, Sasha. Ever since she was a tiny lamb, her mother had known she would not grow up to be an ordinary sheep. While the other little lambs frolicked gaily in the meadow, chasing each other and gambling nimbly, Sasha strode back and forth at the edge of the field, muttering fiercely under her breath. When she grew older, she would sit for hours with her head buried in a book, or scribbling furiously on little pieces of paper which she hid in the bushes. Other times, she went missing altogether, which sent her mother into a frenzy, convinced she had been carried off by a wolf. Then she would find her, propped upside down behind a tree. Meditating, Sasha called it, getting in touch with her inner self. And it seemed that Sasha had an awful lot of self to get in touch with. The teenage years were the worst. She would stomp around the field in one of her moods, glowering at anyone who tried to follow her. She dyed her wool purple and brushed it up into stiff spikes. She even had a ring put in her nose. Very unbecoming, dear, said her mother mildly. Those are just for bulls. But Sasha didn't care. I am an artist, she would cry. I must give vent to my creative urges and express my individuality. What it all boiled down to was that Sasha just wasn't happy being one of the flock. She had a problem, and her problem was the other sheep. Sasha could not conceive of a more dull and unimaginative bunch. For no matter what she did to set herself apart, the other silly creatures were bound to copy her. And as she grew older, things grew worse. Quite unwillingly, she became a trendsetter, a style guru, and whether it was having her wool sheared in stylish patterns or sporting a feather bow and dark glasses, you could be sure that where she led, the others were sure to follow. Oh, here's actually a photo of Sasha with her spiky wool and her nose ring. See? Spiky wool and her nose ring. It's the highest form of flattery, dear, said her mother. Baloney, said Sasha. And so it was one morning that Sasha woke in a particularly foul temper, having discovered all the other sheep copying her latest pirate look, eye patch and polka dot bandana, to find a handsome new sheepdog standing over her. Get lost, she growled, staring up at him. You must be Sasha, he smiled. I've heard a lot about you from the other dogs. None of it good, I must say. I'm Sid. Do me a favor and come and lead this goofy bunch into the next field, would you? I want to make a good impression on my first day. Now, as a rule, Sasha never did anything a dog asked her to. But there was something about Sid that made her sit up and pay attention. He was different from the others. Pleasant, for one thing, and then she noticed that his eyes were different colors, one blue and one brown. How wonderfully individual, thought Sasha. The fact he thought the other sheep were goofy was just the icing on the cake. Sasha was smitten. The farmer could hardly believe his eyes when he saw Sasha jump up and do exactly as Sid directed. She had always been so very difficult before. Well, well, well. Perhaps she'd finally met... Sorry, guys. Perhaps she'd finally met her match, which, of course, is exactly what happened, although not in the way the farmer was thinking. From then on, Sasha and Sid were inseparable. In fact, the farmer was so impressed by their teamwork that he decided to enter them in the sheepdog trials at the upcoming country fair. Dutifully, they practiced their routine every day, with Sid lying low in the grass, listening attentively to the farmer's low whistles, and directing Sasha in a series of intricate maneuvers. They were magnificent, moving together as one in perfect harmony. The farmer was sure they would take the country fair by storm. Little did he know that is just what they were planning to do. But again, not in the way the farmer was thinking. For every night, once the others were asleep, Sasha and Sid had been hard at work, secretly practicing a special routine of their own. Well, the day of the sheepdog trials finally dawned, and there was great excitement as the sheepdogs rounded up the sheep and herded them, led of course by Sasha, into the farmer's truck. At the show, they sat dutifully in their pen and watched team after team of dogs and sheep go through their maneuvers. Mind-numbingly dull, isn't it? Sasha muttered to Sid. Have they no imagination at all? Wait till it's our turn, smirked Sid. We'll show them. But when their turn came, Sasha and Sid were nowhere to be found. Would Sasha and Sid please take the field, said the announcer. announcer over the loudspeaker. "If there is any further delay, we may have to disqualify you." Uh-oh. There was pandemonium as everyone looks around frantically for the missing pair. But then, in a great burst of color, Sasha and Sid emerged from the trailer and took to the field as the audience gasped in amazement. Sasha was dressed in a brilliant red flamenco dress with a rose behind her ear, and Sid looked equally dashing in a tuxedo and dark sunglasses. As the loudspeakers crackled, then burst into life and Latin music boomed across the field, Sasha and Sid sprang into action. They danced the samba, lambada, and salsa, moving together in perfect harmony. The judges were outraged and disqualified them at once. Never had such a thing happened at their show, but Sasha and Sid just kept on dancing. As the crowd clapped and cheered, putting on a show no one would ever forget, and securing Sasha's place in the history books as a sheep completely like any other. Even the farmer was pleased. After all, it was great publicity. As she snuggled down to sleep next to Sid that night, Sasha felt truly happy. She had made her mark at last. Interestingly enough, though, Sasha dancing has become awfully popular these days. Look, here's Sasha. There she is in her nice red dress, and there's Sid, sheepdog. They are looking dapper. And that's the end of that one. What did you guys think of that one?
Good.
Did you like that one? Yeah? Nice. Okay. On to the next one. This one is called The Sensible Tax. Who's ready for it? Nice. Okay, let's get started. Okay. The sensible tax. "The bridge is falling down," said the transportation minister. "We need more golf balls," said the sports minister. The prime minister didn't look up from his papers, but waved his hand wearily and said with a sigh, "Go to the treasury and get what you need." "The treasury is empty, sir. There's not a single penny left." "I don't believe it," said the prime minister. "It was full last week." "I think we spent it all in the tunnel under the sea, sir," said the second minister. "You know, the one we can't find the entrance to." "Don't remind me," said the prime minister. Together, the three important gentlemen raced down to the treasury. It was empty. For once there had been piles of gold and silver coins, there was now nothing. Just big balls of dust rolling across the bare floor. The prime minister called a meeting. "We need to come up with a new tax to raise some more money," he said. "What haven't we taxed yet?" The minister looked at him in silence. "How about food?" asked the prime minister. "We've taxed that already," said someone. "Roads?" "Those too," said another. "Windows, pets, water, music? There must be something that the people do or want or can't help being that we can tax," said the prime minister. One of his advisors coughed. "There is one thing," he said. "Yes?" asked the prime minister. "Well, we raise our children to be very sensible," said the man. "We teach them to wipe their feet when they come in the house, to brush their teeth before they go to bed, not to wipe their noses on their sleeves." "Absolutely," interrupted the prime minister, "which means that most people are sensible. And we can tax them for it," said the prime minister. "That's brilliant." So the prime minister introduced the sensible tax. Anyone who behaved sensibly would have to pay money to the treasury. Tax officials were sent out to collect the money, and at first it was a great success. They taxed people for getting to work on time, for carrying umbrellas if it looked as if it was going to rain. They taxed people for walking their dogs, for not eating snacks between meals, for taking a bus if where they were going was too far to walk. Once the tax officials got used to the new tax, there seemed no end of things they could tax people for. At soccer games, they taxed every single player for kicking the ball towards the other team's goal. At the track meets, they taxed all the runners from sprinting towards the finish line. The treasury soon began to fill up again. Aren't these just crazy things to tax people for? Of course, the new tax wasn't very popular with the people, and soon they began to grumble. "I've just been taxed for wearing my scarf," said Benjamin's dad when he came home from work one evening. "Why were you wearing your scarf, George?" asked his wife, Myrtle. "Well, it's cold out," he said. "Yes, of course," she replied. "This is ridiculous," said George. "All of our lives we are told to be sensible, and now they charge us for it. It's not a sensible tax, it's a completely stupid tax. The only people who never have to pay anything are the ones who are as nutty as fruitcakes." I've never heard that saying before. Just then there was a knock at the door. "I'm a tax official," said the man at the door. "This is just a random house check. Am I correct in thinking that you are about to eat dinner at dinner time, ma'am?" asked the man. "Yes," said Myrtle. "And is it piping hot and straight from the oven?" asked the man. "Yes," came the reply. "And is it cooked all the way through? And will you be sitting at the dinner table to eat it, ma'am? And is there dessert to follow?" Myrtle answered yes to all of these questions, and the official handed her a tax bill. Just then Benjamin came wandering down the stairs wearing a wetsuit, a pair of flippers, and a top hat at his head. "I don't want dinner," he said to his mom. "I've been eating chocolate all day. I'm going out now. I'll be back long after my bedtime." Do you guys see what Benjamin's doing? He's not being very sensible, is he? "Well, there's no charge there," said the tax official, smiling. When the man was gone, Benjamin's dad asked why Benjamin was acting so stupidly. "To avoid being taxed, I guess," said Myrtle. They both thought for a moment about what she'd said, and then smiled. Of course, that was the answer. They had to stop being sensible. The next day, George did not get up in time for breakfast. He put on his shorts even though it was cold out, and then he took the garbage can for a walk. The garbage can for a walk. It's like taking a fish for a walk. Several people stopped him in the street. "George, why are you acting so stupidly?" they all asked. "To avoid the sensible tax," he grinned. George bought a newspaper and threw it straight into a litter basket. Then he ordered a pizza for breakfast and fed it to a stray dog. Later that day, he was seen reciting poetry to the pigeons in the park. He didn't go to work, and he had a wonderful time. Lots of people saw him and saw that he got off tax-free all day. They saw what a clever idea he had, and they were inspired. Look at him. He's in the park, reciting poetry to the pigeons in his underwear. What a weird guy. But it works. He wasn't taxed at all. He's a smart man. The next day, most people didn't go to work at all. And those who didn't get there on time. Some went to the wrong jobs. They walked if it was too far to walk. If they had bicycles, they carried them. A lot of people went to the movies in the afternoon dressed as pirates. But they didn't watch the film. No, that would have been too sensible. Instead, they faced the back of the theater and sang silly songs at the top of their voices. They all had a great day, and the next day, they all got up late and did it all over again. Only this time, they found even more ways to be silly. The tax officials began to get worried. Sorry, guys. The money had stopped coming in, and the government ministers were even more worried. No one was doing any work. The country was falling apart. They called an emergency meeting with the Prime Minister. "Sorry I'm late," said the Prime Minister. "My train didn't leave on time, and then it went off in the wrong direction. It's chaos out there. What's going on?" "It's the sensible tax, sir," said one of his ministers. "Everyone is acting stupidly so that they don't have to pay it." "Well, this can't go on," said the Prime Minister. "The country's gone mad." "We'll have to cancel the tax," said someone. The Prime Minister paused. He liked the sensible tax. It raised lots of money. Without it, the treasury would be empty again. But things were getting out of hand. "Yes," he said sadly. And then he smiled. "I've got it," he cried. "Why don't we tax people for wearing clothes?" Oh my gosh, this is getting crazy. All the ministers threw up their hands in complete despair. "Oh no," they groaned. Here, look. Here's some of the crazy things people were doing to avoid the sensible tax. Carrying bikes, wearing costumes to work. Look, she's wearing a funny hat. Sleeping in. Well, this is where they were wearing the pirate costumes. See? Sleeping in, carrying bikes. Lots of stuff. Madness, I tell you. Okay. Oh, that's the end of it. What a way to end the story, hey? What did you guys think of that one? Did you like it? Yeah? Wouldn't that be crazy, living in a world where they taxed you for being sensible? Just crazy. Good thing it's just a story. Because that would be bonkers. Our next story is called It's Raining. I think it actually might just be a nice little poem. Okay, let's read this. It's raining. What? It's raining cats and dogs, and warty toads and frogs, and red-kneed bats and derby hats. It's raining big fat hogs. It's raining needles and pins, and rusty cans and tins, and things I don't like, such as pieces of bike. It's raining old clothespins. It's raining sugar and spice, and sleek white rats and mice, and currant buns and somebody's sons. It's raining furry dice. It's raining apples and pears, and dolls and teddy bears, and silly pigs in curly wigs. It's raining plastic chairs. It's raining smelly socks, and pebbles, stones, and rocks, and grease-stained ties and old pot pies. It's raining party frocks. It's raining tropical fruits, and cowboy hats and suits, and hairy legs, and bacon and eggs. It's raining shoes and boots. It's raining ducks and drakes, and chocolate bars and cakes, and glasses of milk and colorful silk. It's raining garden rakes. And that's the end of that one. That is insane. I wonder who came up with that. Just all those things that it's raining. A lot of random stuff.
Kaylee.
Hey, Kaylee.
Join us. We're not done yet.
You're joining we should have time for one more story, Kaylee. So you'll get to listen to it. This is a long one. Let's see how long this one is. We could probably get through it. This one is called The Underwater Talent Show. Hey, Kaylee.
Hello, Kaylee.
Oh, did you guys like the poem? What did you think of it? Did you like it? Yeah? Nice. Okay. This one is called the Underwater Talent Show. Every morning for the past week, Shrimp had woken up in a panic. Today was no different. What day is it, he thought, treading water so fast that he spun around in circles until his spindly legs got tangled up. He realized with a sinking heart that it was Saturday, the day of the talent show. Shrimp had never felt so talentless. All week he had tried to devise amazing feats to dazzle the talent show judges. He tried to lift 10 sea slugs with his bare antenna, but he couldn't even lift one. When he tried to pick one up, he is horribly stung by the outraged sea slug, who thought he had a lot of nerve. Look at him. There he is trying to pick up the sea slug, and it does not look happy. It's got a very unhappy look on its face. Then Shrimp thought he'd try his hand at karaoke. A friendly DJ called Cool Daddy Squid mixed a tape of Shrimp's favorite songs, to which they gave the title Shrimp's Cocktail. The tape included such classic sounds as Shellfish Lover and Hake, Rattle and Roll. Shrimp certainly looked the part as he grabbed the microphone, dressed in a spangled jacket and shades. The problem was his singing, or rather squeaking. The unfortunate truth was that Shrimp had the most awful singing voice. A passing shoal of herring darted away in disgust, and Hermit Crab moved deeper inside his shell and sealed the entrance fast, while Shrimp screeched his way through the tunes. "Enough!" bellowed Cool Daddy Squid, switching off the tape and ripping off his headphones. "I should try knitting instead," he added sarcastically as he swam away, leaving poor Shrimp feeling quite miserable. "Squid's right in a way," thought Shrimp dejectedly. "I'm a modest fellow. I should think of a less ostentatious talent." Then he smiled at himself, to himself, not at himself. "I've got it! I have a tremendous talent for blushing." Every time Shrimp felt embarrassed, he felt a deep blush reach all the way from his tips of his antenna to the end of his tiny legs. He had to dive down to deep waters at those moments to cool off until the blush had gone. "I must practice blushing for the talent show," thought Shrimp. Prawn rushed to Mermaid's cave as fast as his little legs would carry him. Mermaid looked out there dreamingly from her home and yawned. "Dear Mermaid," stammered Shrimp, "could I borrow your mirror?" Shrimp could already feel a blush coming on. The trouble was he always blushed when he spoke to Mermaid. If only she knew how much he loved her. Shrimp grabbed the mirror and looked into it. He stared hard, then he felt very foolish. He looked exactly the same as ever, bright pink. He now realized that when he blushed, he didn't change color at all. He was always pink, had always been, and always would be. Mermaid gazed at Shrimp from under her lovely lashes. "What's up, Shrimp?" she drawled. "You look upset." "Oh, nothing," replied Shrimp as he handed her the mirror. She was looking at him with her clear blue eyes, and Shrimp couldn't think of anything to say. "Must run, lots to do," he gulped as he swam off. "Ah, he is sweet," thought Mermaid, wistfully as she went back into her cave. Shrimp was sad. The talent show would be starting soon, and he had nothing to offer. As Shrimp peeked out through the weeds, he could see that the ocean... Sorry, guys. Reading books makes me sleepy. As Shrimp peeked out through the weeds, he could see that the ocean was alive with excited and purposeful activity. A group of clams were practicing opening and closing their shells in sequence. Anglerfish was unscrewing the light at the end of his fishing rod and putting a glitter ball in its place. Ooh. Then Shrimp spotted Cool Daddy Squid with a nervous-looking young starfish at his side. "You're gonna be the greatest," he heard Cool Daddy Squid whisper to the starfish. Shrimp could also hear the sound of mermaid singing scales, followed by much gargling. "She's much too talented for me," he thought gloomily. He was about to burst into tears when Shark swam past with a jester's hat on his head. "Coming to the show, Shrimpy?" he grinned. "It's gonna be loads of fun." "See you there," called Shrimp. Yes, he thought, I will go. Then I could admire Mermaid from afar. Ooh, Shrimp's got a crush. Mermaid straightened his bow tie and set off for the show. "Hi there," called a familiar voice. It was Mermaid, wearing a dazzling ball gown and sporting pearls in her hair. Shrimp started to blush. He felt hotter and hotter. "Wish me luck, Shrimp," she said, swishing past him. Was all Shrimp could manage as he gazed at her departing tail. Must cool off, he thought. He loosened his bow tie and plunged deep into the icy water at the ocean floor. That's better, thought Shrimp. Just then, his eye was caught by something golden sticking out of the sand. Buried treasure, thought Shrimp excitedly. He began digging frantically with all his legs at once, tugging at the object until at last he pulled it free. Shrimp frowned. What could the thing be? Looked a little like a picture frame with a picture missing. And there were strings hanging from it too. Shrimp was very puzzled. Still, if it was made of gold, it must be valuable. Here, take a look at this, guys. Does anybody know what that is? Well, we'll see in a second. Then Shrimp had a wonderful idea. He could take the thing to the talent show. Oh, sorry again, guys. Whew, it's a Monday. He could take the thing to the talent show and auction it. Who knows? Maybe he had a talent for auctioneering. He had his bow tie on. Didn't auctioneers wear bow ties? He must be made for the job. Feeling very pleased with himself, Shrimp dragged his treasure all the way to the talent show. The show had already started when Shrimp arrived, so he slipped in at the back to watch. Octopus was on stage. He was wearing cleats on each of his 8 feet, giving a fine demonstration of soccer skills. He dribbled the ball, passed it from foot to foot, and took an occasional header. The audience loved it. Then he started tap dancing, clattering out a complicated rhythm with all 8 cleats. The crowd roared. Octopus took a deep bow and left the stage. Now it was the turn of the Sardine Sisters. Dressed in fabulous silver dresses, the 3 sardines sang their hearts out. Shrimp looked at his treasure and realized it needed a little attention before it could be auctioned off. He spotted some glue that one of the Sardine Sisters had been using to put on her false eyelashes. Soon, he was busily gluing the strings in place on the frame. Are there any more contestants? Shrimp heard a voice say. He looked up. Judge Salmon was standing at the front of the stage, and it looked as though it might be too late. Shrimp pushed his way to the front. Wait, he cried. I'd like to try. The judge looked down. And what have you got to offer? He asked, casting a cold eye over Shrimp's treasure. I'm going to auction this thing, mumbled Prawn, struggling onto the stage. We'll get started then, snapped the judge. I'm just gonna finish up these 2 pages quick because we're running out of time, guys. Shrimp looked out at the crowd. Everyone was resting and starting to chatter. I, he stammered. He could feel himself blushing as he held up the treasure. As all his knees started to tremble, his legs shook and got tangled up in the string of the treasure. And a strange thing happened. Shrimp started to hear wonderful music. The more he struggled to free his legs, the more music he heard. The crowd grew quiet as everyone listened in wonder. Shrimp realized that the sound was coming from the treasure. He was playing the music with his legs. He stopped struggling and let them drift backwards and forwards over the strings. The crowd was hushed, enraptured. Suddenly a voice cried out, "My harp! You're playing the harp! I lost long ago, Shrimp." Shrimp looked up. A mermaid was swimming towards him with tears in her eyes. She rushed up onto the stage and kissed and hugged him joyfully. "Thank you, Shrimp," she cried. "You have played the most beautiful music on the harp that I have ever heard." The crowd cheered. Shrimp blushed. "I suppose you could call it a hidden talent," he said. And there we go. Okay, now I'm going to pass you off to Grace because we are going to be cut off here in a minute, okay? Thanks for joining us, guys.